We're going to do great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here to listen to our presentation. So we are strategy team number 1, and our topic for our project and presentation is on alumni stewardship. So our title for our presentation is Creating Continuity, a National Alumni Stewardship Framework for SNMA. So just to give a quick rundown of our intended agenda for our presentation, first we're intending to go through a quick few introductions for ourselves and then also for our wonderful advisors that we have for our project. Second is going over the project and the project statement and a little bit of background information so that we can understand why our project was important and why it was important to undergo, understand like how to improve this aspect of SNMA. Third is going through the objectives. So how exactly is it that we're planning to tackle this project? And then we are going into the timeline or the plan to be able to help you understand like how is it that we went through the process of structuring the project to make sure that we kept up with deadlines and anything that kind of helps out with understanding the project and leading up to the proposal. And then lastly, going over a few of the challenges and concerns that could potentially happen with this project so that way we can assist with the sustainability aspect of our proposal. But of course, it's important to remember and recognize the overall purpose of SNMA. And this is specifically directly indicated in our mission statement, which is shown on the screen. So the Student National Medical Association, or SNMA, is a wonderful organization committed to supporting current and future underrepresented minority medical students, overall addressing the needs of underserved communities and addressing the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians. So this mission statement isn't important only for encouraging and supporting the underserved communities, but also for instilling these values into healthcare as a whole and to improve healthcare policy and practice. So this was our team of wonderful members for strategy team number 1. So first starting with Angela Che, who is a pre-medical fellow at Ohio State University. And then myself, Douglas Johnson, a medical fellow at the University of South Carolina, Columbia. And then Miracle Darrington, another medical fellow at Meharry Medical College. And then these are the wonderful advisors that we had for our project. So they were super helpful in allowing us to be able to consult with them for our project, providing valuable feedback and insight into SNMA alumni stewardship as a whole. So first starting with Mike Spencer, who is also the current SNMA chairperson of the board, as well as Dr. Brandon Henry and Dr. Dale Sanders, with their respective titles shown below.
And then next, just to give a little bit of background about our project. So currently, alumni engagement after graduation is inconsistent, and communication is broad and non-specific. This further leads to alumni losing connection despite their desire to stay involved, and there's currently no effective system to ensure alumni connections remain current. Next slide, please. So next we just spoke a little bit about what's the importance of alumni stewardship. So it reinforces a lifelong relationship with SNMA beyond graduation for support. You get mentorship, advocacy, and investments. It strengthens organizational stability and continuity. And then stewardship also builds long-term systems. Next slide. And then next we went into our core components for our project. Strategy 1, we addressed the national alumni communication. Strategy 2, we just created like some creative alumni engagement concepts. And then strategy 3, we focused on understanding the existing alumni infrastructure. Next slide.
So as Miracle mentioned, strategy 1 was focusing on the systems-based approach to alumni communication. And what we recognized from undergoing our project is that without intentional outreach and follow through, alumni connection can fade away. So one of the 3 different ways that we try to work on tackling this aspect of the strategy for our project is to first look at intentional outreach. So just overall understanding how do we communicate with alumni in a way that feels intentional and relevant. And then second is looking at the overall tracking of engagement for the alumni. So just looking at how do we capture and interpret alumni engagement. in order to inform future outreach. And then thirdly, looking at sustainable management. So how we're able to maintain alumni engagement over time without relying on individual leaders. And of course, this would be really important because everybody has a lot of responsibilities and things going on. So just helping to have a good solid system or support system in place instead of focusing on just like individual people will help make things more sustainable. So overall, this leads into the overall outcome for the or for strategy one to support sustainable and consistent alumni engagement across leadership transitions.
And then bringing us back to strategy two, creating a creative alumni engagement. So for the need, we said to like find like a fun, innovative way to like foster and maintain alumni relationship with SNMA that's enjoyable and resourceful. So as far as like the marketing approach, we asked like what is the most efficient way to capture attention? For the emailing system, we asked how can we improve and maintain communication regarding events? And then for conference support, we asked how can we keep them engaged and supported as they pour into us? And the projected outcome will be increased alumni visibility, emotional investment, and active participation in SNMA. And this will result in stronger mentorship pipelines and greater resource access for students. Next slide.
So our third strategy is to understand existing alumni infrastructure. So it's necessary for SNMA to establish a clear understanding of its current alumni infrastructure, including existing systems, role delegations within alumni affairs, and follow-up practices, which is all of this is important to be able to identify gaps and build more consistent and meaningful alumni engagements. So our first target is to assess existing alumni infrastructure. So to analyze what alumni systems currently exist and where the gaps are that limit effective outreach. Our second target is to clarify roles and strengthen accountability. So understand clearer role definitions within alumni affairs, which can improve consistency and accountability in alumni stewardship. Our third target is to collect alumni feedback and implement recognition initiatives. So to understand what types of outreach and recognition that make alumni feel very valued and more likely to stay engaged within SNMA. So the intent and outcome is to establish a clear relationship in coordination with alumni affairs and to implement new engagement strategies that will enable consistent alumni stewardship. Next. So what we have learned so far is that communication is the primary structure gap in alumni engagement. We've also learned that alumni disengagement often reflects a lack of outreach or clear opportunities, and it's not due to a lack of interest in staying connected. Lastly, sustainable engagement depends on systems and not just motivated individuals. Next. In terms of our timeline, we first looked at investigating our core problem, designing a project plan, finalizing the communication framework, and then we looked into refining engagement concepts, aligning the database proposal with alumni affairs, and then finally prepare a full proposal for submission. Next. So a few challenges and considerations that we have to consider was that outdated alumni contact information can create low reachability and inconsistent engagement efforts. Also, time constraints for student leaders creates a limited capacity for frequent outreach and follow-through tasks. Next.
And then with that, we have our closing remarks for our project, which is focusing on alumni stewardship, as we mentioned, and overall addresses two main aspects or real organizational needs. So first is focused on the building of the foundation for long-term alumni engagement, because as we've mentioned, the alumni are definitely interested in remaining engaged, but the communication might be a little bit off, and that's something that has been reinforced by a project. And then secondly, this overall project reinforces SNMA's mission beyond medical school that will create a lasting impact for time to come. And then with that, we'd like to thank you all for listening to our presentation. And then we'd also like to give a special thank you to the following people who made this project possible, including Lisa, Frank, and Tamika, who have been wonderful aspects of the FNLP program and helping us get really great feedback and insight into how to help SNMA better. But thank you so much all for listening, and we're happy to take any questions.
Someone asked a question. Are we just answering the questions in the?
I think so, yes. So I can read it, and we can answer it together. So, first question from Planerific 22. Lovely presentation. Thank you so much. I'm curious to know more about the proposal. Is this something that has already been developed? Would anybody like to specifically answer the question, or I'd be happy to do so?
It has not been developed as of yet. It is something that we have as a proposal. We would love for it to be incorporated into alumni, if possible.
Yes. So I know that some of the things that are already being implemented are sending out different like newsletters to SNMA members, as well as updating things on like Instagram. But as we've talked about with our advisors, is that not everybody's going to have access to different things. And also, like we mentioned in our presentation, that sometimes their email addresses or phone numbers could potentially be outdated. So although certain things have been implemented in SNMA, our project is kind of focusing on streamlining things a little bit, and that aspect hasn't been developed just yet. But thank you so much for your question.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Following the schedule, we might be able to move to the next team. Yes. I'm not seeing any other questions at the moment, but we did leave our contact information at the bottom. So if you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. So thank you again so much for your attention. I think we'll probably leave now to give the next team some time to get ready.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much.
Good afternoon. We are Strategy Team 2. My name is Tyler, and my team members are Maureen and Marisa. Our talk is entitled Strengthening Leadership Continuity, a Standardized Transition Framework for SNMA. And just to start off with SNMA's mission statement, the Student National Medical Association is committed to supporting current and future underrepresented minority medical students, addressing the needs of underserved communities, and increasing the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians. Throughout this meeting, we'll do a meet the team, go through our project objectives, the transition framework, project insights, and then challenges and considerations, as well as future directions for the project. As I mentioned, my name is Tyler Johnson. I am a third-year medical student at the University of Virginia School of Medicine.
I'm Maureen Akumo, and I'm a third-year medical student at Tulane University School of Medicine.
And I'm Marissa Tate, and I'm a post-baccalaureate student. Just received my master's in biomedical sciences last fall from the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine.
And so our project focused on SNMA BOD leadership transitions. And so for a little background, as we know, SNMA is a multi-layered system with both local, regional, and national positions. So there's a lot of leadership turnover where there can also be a lot of gaps in information exchange. And then not only are we a multi-layered system, but we also an organization of 61 years of history. And so documentation is vast, and it can be really challenging for new appointees to navigate all of the documentation and history of SNMA. And then sorry, can you go back? Thanks, sorry. And then also there's typically a gap in between when people are appointed to their positions and when they actually begin their roles. So during that transition gap, new leaders can feel uncertainty and lack of preparation for when their roles actually start. And then lastly, most predecessors are tasked with the responsibility of training their successors. Communication of responsibilities can vary across the different positions, which can ultimately lead to a loss of information that might be essential for people to reach their full leadership potential in their positions. And so the goal of our project was to develop a standardized, scalable leadership transition framework for elected and appointed SNMA roles that strengthens continuity and accountability across all leadership levels. And our framework really took a four-pronged approach, the first being clarifying role expectations by standardizing transition documents that outline responsibilities, completed objectives, common challenges, and goals for the upcoming terms. Preserving institutional knowledge through required knowledge transfer meetings, organized archival practices, and centralized submission of transition materials. And then also helping to support a smoother onboarding process by integrating existing officer training, orientation modules, and a clear transition timeline for handoff processes. And then lastly, just helping to strengthen accountability by establishing formal transition completion tracking and oversights by national leadership. And so really the key principle underlying all of this work is to build on existing SNMA policies and procedures and ultimately enhancing and standardizing current practices rather than replacing them.
Okay. And to achieve our goal, we established three main steps. So the first being analysis of the current transition documents and materials, followed by outlining and organizing those materials, as Tyler mentioned, think timelines, responsibilities, and FAQs into a more detailed and user-friendly document framework. And we refer to this as our transition skeleton. Finally, we plan for this skeleton to be distributed yearly at AMEC, where the initial step of transition for positions occurs with the intention to promote SNMA's commitment for members to obtain essential leadership skills and competencies to be successful in the field of medicine and beyond.
So for document centralization, one item that we've generated is the policy and procedures resource manual. So the PPRM is a centralized leadership-facing system that organizes the documents and tools required to execute SNMA leadership roles. Currently, transitions rely on informal knowledge transfer, which leads to inconsistencies. And the PPRM addresses this by providing a standardized, accessible index that is aligned with leadership roles. It is organized by leadership levels and indexed by positions, allowing leaders to directly access forms, templates, and reporting tools. The goal is to improve the readiness and reduce variability in hopes of strengthening the continuity across leadership cycles.
Yeah, so our transition skeleton includes a general leadership welcome and orientation packet, as is mentioned. It overviews important governing materials to read, general responsibilities, and expected conduct. It has three overarching components. One, our transition timeline, two, the transition completion documentation, and three, the policies and procedures reference manual that Maureen was discussing. So the transition timeline is a crucial piece in highlighting what exactly to expect from your spring appointment at AMEC to your full transition into your role in the fall. Within that transition timeline, we provide suggestions for those knowledge of transfer meetings that were mentioned earlier to help ease newly appointed members into their roles and solidify their understanding of the inner workings of SNMA in collaboration with their predecessor. And to further support leadership assisting the transition of newly appointed members, we created a transition completion documentation checklist and a position-specific orientation and transition template for chapter presidents that regional directors can customize. And we encourage other SMA leaders to also use this template as a guide for the roles that they oversee. Lastly, the policies and procedures reference manual, or PPRM, highlighting steps for best archival practices, is used to deepen the foundation of SNMA's institutional knowledge for those to come. So you can scan any of the QR codes above to view the documents that I mentioned.
So while working on this project, our team developed some project insights. One key insight was that standardization requires flexibility. Leadership roles are different across all levels of the national, regional, and local chapter leadership. So the framework has to be adaptable while maintaining consistency. We also found that materials already exist, but they're not structured for accessibility or execution. So implementation is constrained by time, particularly during transition periods that overlap with academic responsibilities. And then finally, sustainability depends on clear ownership for maintenance, updates, and long-term integration. So some challenges and considerations. A major consideration is balancing standardization with flexibility across the leadership levels, like I mentioned before. Resource centralization requires clear ownership for maintenance, version control, and accuracy. So because there are ideally 4 different volumes of the PPRM, it requires updating annually or biannually to make sure that the links in the documents are up to date. So adoption depends on usability. These tools must be able to be integrated into existing workflows without adding additional burden, or else the documents themselves won't really be as usable as we would hope. So the ease of use is what will dictate the adoption of these materials into current practices. And we're also prioritizing alignment with the existing systems to avoid duplication. So for future directions, the immediate next steps would focus on establishing ownership for the transition tracking, document management, and system maintenance, along with aligning materials with existing workflows. From there, the PPRM can be expanded across leadership levels and integrated into centralized platforms like the SNMA website through the membership portal. Implementation should begin with a pilot. So that's for the implementation and sustainability, with a pilot with selected leaders to gauge feedback and help with refinement of the projects or the tools that we have presented. And then long-term success would depend on defined oversight to maintain continuity and version control. So that concludes our strategy presentation. We would like to give a special thank you to the additional members that assisted with our project completion. So Ms. Lisa Felton, who's a strategy team coordinator, Dr. Hickman, and Drs. Chakrua, which were our advisors, and the SMA Board of Directors. And we'll now take any questions.
I can read the question aloud. Are there any particular team that you would like to begin the pilot with and why?
Oh, okay. I saw the question and then it disappeared, but that's a really good question. So for the leadership framework, when we initiated the documents, the tangibles that are part of our project, are you able to scroll back to the QR codes just in case people want to scan them? So for those, a lot of the leadership documents that we began to flesh out were kind of I guess, inspired by the leadership transition process that the national committee co-chairs go through. So I would, ideally, that is the group of leaders that we would like to start pilot our documents with, in addition to local chapter presidents. So those two groups of leaders, I think would be ideal candidates to pilot our project.
All right, well, it doesn't look like there's any more questions, so we'll log off so the next team can join. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Is everyone able to see the PowerPoint? Okay, great. Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Naja Hill, and I am part of Strategy Team 3. We will be presenting on strengthening the SNMA leadership pipeline. Okay, so just a little bit about our members. So this is me, Naja Hill. I'm from Ewing, New Jersey, and I'm currently a second-year medical student at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. This is our team member that unfortunately was unable to make it today. Her name is Taffany. She is a third-year medical student at SIU School of Medicine. And this is Shelda. Shelda, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself since you're here.
I can. Greetings, everyone. I am Shelda St. Preux, and I am an OMS 2 attending VCOM at Louisiana.
We also wanted to take a moment to recognize our project advisors, which is Kaylin Geeter, Dr. Anthony Kay, and Dr. Cortland Brown. So we wanted to start off with just stating the SNMA mission, just because that stands at the core of all of our values and initiatives moving forward. And so the Student National Medical Association is committed to supporting current and future underrepresented minority medical students, addressing the needs of underserved communities and increasing the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians. So our project is on leadership development. And so essentially how we started off is we identified the major problem, which is that leadership pathways often rely on informal communications. It's kind of a trend that we've seen, particularly in SNMA leadership. Just from conversations that we've had with friends and through our personal experiences, we found that these awareness of the regional and national roles is really independent, and it's really specific on whether or not you know people that have had that role before, are aware of certain initiatives on how to apply, and various things of that nature. And so some things that we've found is that members typically don't know how to apply, feel underqualified, or really just don't understand that time commitment. This is important, especially for national student-led organizations such as SNMA, because having these inconsistencies really just shows that qualified students are missing out on opportunities to really seek out leadership roles that they are truly qualified for and would excel at. And so what we're even seeing currently is that leadership representation and continuity can be affected, and the numbers of people applying for leadership positions can be stunted. Our objective is to strengthen the SNMA leadership pipeline by increasing awareness, accessibility, and engagement in leadership opportunities at all levels across the SNMA. And so in order to do this, we hope to increase the visibility of leadership pathways, reduce barriers, and create educational resources, whether it be across regional levels or national levels, to educate students on what these leadership opportunities entail. Some of the things that we've specified in leadership recruitment currently within the SNMA is that these leadership pathways in terms of how to go about seeking out national leadership, how to go beyond the chapter level, how to really utilize the skill sets that we have as leaders to seek out the leadership positions that would best suit us. Those pathways are not clearly defined. And one of the downfalls of that is that the information sharing is quite inconsistent between the levels. So individuals that are either at the regional or chapter level are unsure of the next steps. What we have identified is that students really just need support in navigating these pathways or in navigating this process. And so for the duration of our project, which was December 2025 to March 2026, this is just outlining the different phases of the FLP projects. And so we've gone through 5 different phases, and we're now in the NFLP culmination stage. And we will outline a little bit more details coming forward. And so in particular for our project, the methods that we utilized is we decided to use a survey that we developed to gather information from our 3 individual campuses to really just derive kind of the key barriers that these students are facing in seeking SNMA leadership. We then analyzed that data with the help of our student mentors and are now currently formatting a proposed data implementation phase.
So here's a glimpse of some of our questions that we asked in the survey. So we looked at which year of medical training the students are in, their interest in leadership, obstacles, barriers, and what can SNMA do to increase their likelihood of applying. On our next page, we'll see from our initial data collection, we received 27 responses across our 3 institutions, and that gave us an early look into member perceptions of leadership within SNMA. So although our sample size was relatively small and it was from select campuses, it gives us an important starting point. You know, like this can serve as an opportunity to scale data across regions in the future. So that can strengthen and validate our findings, and it can help us implement the appropriate interventions. Here you see that about 60% of respondents express interest in national leadership. So that tells us that the issue may not be a lack of interest, but rather a gap in converting that interest into actual applicants. And the next bullet point shows us that 47% express interest into regional leadership. So that may reflect a lack of clarity or visibility surrounding regional roles specifically. So on the next slide, we analyzed the responses more closely, and 3 key themes emerged. We saw that time constraint was one of them, where about 54% of respondents replied saying that they were concerned about balancing leadership with academic responsibilities, and they felt like they didn't have a clear understanding of what the time commitment truly looks like. The second theme we saw was awareness and process clarity. So they said that they didn't know what positions were available. There were confusions about the application steps and a lack of clarity around the expectations surrounding that role. So this reinforces the idea that the leadership pathways are not always clearly defined or communicated. And we also acknowledge that the path to leadership may not be linear. So it may not be chapter to regional to national. So that may contribute to that finding. And thirdly, confidence in mentorship. So many respondents express uncertainty about their qualifications and how much they desire mentorship or guidance as they consider potential leadership roles. So here we just wanted to show you guys the graphs of some of the results that we got. So this one talked about barriers to pursuing leadership. And again, we see time constraints, we see mentorship, not knowing how to apply. And on the next page, we see here on this graph talking about what would make people more likely to apply. And of course, you see leadership, you see like just more help with the process. But one thing I do want to make clear is it's very important to highlight that many of the solutions that the students are asking for already exist within SNMA. So initiatives such as the leadership interest sessions and there's the elections office hours, they're already in place. The mentorship, we have that through FLP and PPI. And we also have structured communications channels. So it's not just, okay, if you know somebody, they'll tell you about it. We have our newsletters, and our local chapters receive information through their regionals. So a lot of these things are already within SNMA and they're actively being used. So what this tells us is that this is an opportunity not for us to create new resources, but to leverage and amplify the existing ones so that can make the leadership pathways more visible and easier to navigate. So next slide, based off of the insights that we just talked about, our next steps focus on both strengthening what already exists and addressing the gaps in clarity and accessibility. So the next phase targets multimedia interventions. So firstly, we wanted to suggest the development of long form and short form content. So for the long form content, the plan is to build upon existing SNMA presentations and PowerPoints that talk about the SNMA structure from national all the way down to the chapter level to the local level. It talks about leadership roles, expectations, application processes. So take all of the things that already exist and incorporate it into a more accessible format with clear timestamps and structured sections that people can walk through and navigate to whatever section they're more interested in. And we know that the attention span of our generation is a bit short. So of course, short form content helps a lot to engage people with videos that can address their common hesitations. So time commitment, qualifications, how to get involved, and maybe even include testimonials so it can help normalize the leadership experience and make it more attainable and relatable. So in addition, instead of creating entirely new programming, we see an opportunity to enhance existing initiatives, as we talked about before with the leadership sessions that already occur. We talked about that with Kaylin, and she hosted those Are You Interested in Leadership sessions. So we suggest to increase the frequency, not only during election season, maybe outside of election season, that people can have more of an opportunity to understand what that looks like before they enter into the election season. So finally, on the next page, we would like to recommend that the content creation and dissemination be led by the External Affairs National Committee and the leadership interest sessions by the president-elect and their elections committee. So overall, these next steps focus on transforming interest into action by making leadership pathways more transparent, structured, and actively supported while building on the strong foundation that already exists within SNMA. We would like to thank our team member that didn't have the opportunity to come through today, and our advisors, Dr. Brown, Dr. K, and Kaylin, and our SMA family. We're open to questions. And before we're opening to questions, we wanted to have this quote here. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones that we've been waiting for, and we're the change that we seek from our past president, Barack Obama. We are open to questions.
So just responding to, I guess I'm realizing that there are some comments here. And so some of the challenges that we encountered while completing the project, we really chose to kind of think about, like, yes, we did encounter various different challenges in the duration of kind of formulating the project. And some of those things really off the bat were we were really thinking very large. We were trying to get a lot done in a short amount of time. We were trying to really be, kind of like as expansive as we can be, like, how much can we really get done? Like, how big can we really make this? And sometimes, thinking large can be a little bit challenging because of just the simple time constraints of the nature of this project. And so how we kind of chose to reframe that thinking is really considering them not necessarily as challenges, but more so as things that we were maybe unable to complete in this phase of the project. And so we've kind of kind of rotated them and utilized those as the framework or the basis for our next steps, and kind of guiding us into what we would like to charge the next members to complete moving forward.
That's a good question. I feel like we haven't thought like very expansively about this specific way of doing it, but I feel like the way that we did it, where we as like representatives of our local campuses took the survey and disseminated within our classmates, I think maybe that would be the best way to send it out, maybe through local leadership. So maybe from a regional level, disseminate it to the local presidents, and then they disseminate it within their local chapters. But that's a good question as to how we would scale the data. Do you have anything to say, Naja?
Yeah, I would just like to add, like, this is definitely a really good point. It's something that Taffany, Sheldon, and I discussed in our kind of like research analysis phase of this is, how can we make this data more generalizable? Like, yes, this data does scale 3 different medical school campuses, and 3 different SMA regions. However, there are multiple medical school campuses that it does not encompass. And so how can we make this data more generalizable? We did kind of reach out to our advisors about, okay, on a larger scale, maybe what are some ways that we could implement this survey? And we kind of ran into some issues of, or some barriers, such as, the easiest thing would be, let's give it out at AMEC. But, one of the things that we encountered was there's already, a surplus of things that people are kind of getting drowned in at AMEC, whether it be other surveys or different things like that. And so we don't want to really overdo it, and then people are not willing to respond. And so just kind of to piggyback off of what Shel just said, I think that the best way would be really to make it more individualized and kind of maybe reach out to different chapter or regional leaders that are in regions that we have not covered, and ask them, with a simple conversation. We use different group chats. We use GroupMe at a regional level and say, like, hey, we're working on this leadership survey. Is there any way that you could maybe text this in your chapter group chat? Or is there a way that you could send this out? It's virtual, so kind of moving it to that type of dissemination would not be challenging. It would really just be the work of reaching out to regional leadership or chapter leadership in order to do so. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tamika Gillot. I am the co-director for the FLP program. Thank you for joining our presentation, first part of our presentation this afternoon. We had 3 really great projects, and fellows worked really hard this administrative year on the work that they've been doing with their mentors. So very congratulations to all of them, and thank you to all of the mentors. You can join us again at 5:30 for the second part of our presentations. And then we'll see some of the work that our fellows who've been working with the National Committee is what they've been doing throughout this year. So thank you very much.
Hi, how's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in today. Next, we'll get started with the National Committee projects. And first and foremost, I will say these fellows have done a phenomenal job this year collaborating with each and every one of the let's see here. Yeah, collaborating with each and every one of the committees and really just taking the presentations to the next level. And so I'm really excited for each and every one of the presenters to really show off what they've been able to accomplish this year, and then they'll be able to really show you guys what they've got. So we'll go ahead and get started without any delay here. The first presentation we'll have is from Faloren. She'll be sharing the SNMA Impact Report project she did in partnership with Internal Affairs. And we'll bring her up now.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Wonderful. My name is Omo Faloren DeBellet, and the name of my project today is Leadership Transitions with Ease. And we'll go ahead and get started. First, I want to thank Denisha Thomas and Internal Affairs, as well as the FLP administration for all the assistance that they provided during this time. The project that I'm doing focuses on solving a core challenge within the SNMA, how we maintain continuity and clarity across leadership transitions in a large and volunteer-driven organization. And so just to give you a little bit of information about myself, I am here in Brooklyn, New York, but I was raised in Lagos, Nigeria. I've had the pleasure of serving on a variety of leadership boards within the SNMA, including being an FLP fellow for Internal Affairs. I also have the privilege to have been in leadership in a variety of other national medical associations, and some of my hobbies includes watching movies and solving puzzles with my family. And so the agenda today really will go over, I'll be walking you through the problem, the framework I developed, key deliverables, challenges, and the impact, as well as next steps related to how the next fellow might continue or how this might be adopted in the SNMA. And so how I like to look at it is the SNMA is a large dynamic organization that continues to operate effectively across constant leadership turnover. But one of the key questions that I raised and that was raised in Internal Affairs is how is continuity maintained when leadership changes every year? And so that's where the problem kind of arises, right? What I found is that the SNMA already has a wealth of information, PPMs, handbooks, training decks, and leadership, of course, a lot of leadership experience. The issue is not the lack of information, it's that it's fragmented, often year specific, and many expectations are implied rather than explicitly documented. And so with that, what was born was, instead of creating something new, the goal became to centralize the structure of what already exists into a usable, sustainable system. And that's where the idea of an operations and leadership manual kind of came from. And so what we find, or what I found myself doing to allow for this goal to occur the objective was to develop a centralized operations manual that preserves institutional knowledge, standardizes leadership expectations, and ensures continuity across leadership transitions. And how did I get there? Phase 1, I focused on reviewing all existing materials. Phase 2 was designing the framework. Phase 3 was involved in validating any gaps with leadership and identifying what needed to be defined versus what should remain flexible. In phase 4, I focused on populating the manual with validated content, and phase 5 focused on sustainability, where we implemented section ownership, defined escalation pathways, and established an annual update cycle aligned with the NLI. So at this point, we're no longer designing, we're preparing for validation and implementation. And so I like to break up the implementation and sustainability into a variety of tracks. And so starting, we see the pre-pilot phase, right? Before implementation, the focus really is on preparing the framework for real world use, right? This includes finally validating it, assigning section owners and things of that nature. And at this stage, the goal is not perfection, but usability. And then we would move on to the pilot phase, which will focus on testing the manual within a small number of high impact groups. So initial pilot groups may include internal affairs as well as 1 or 2 additional national committees. And really the groups are ideal because they will interact across multiple levels of organization and can provide operational and leadership level feedback. Then the next phase would be during the pilot, which the manual will be used working as an operational guide. And then leaders will use it to understand their roles, clarify escalation and decision-making pathways, and navigate reporting responsibilities, things of that nature. And feedback will be collected on the clarity of the role, the gaps in content, and the ease of use in the real workflow. How success will be measured, right, will be seeing whether there's improved clarity in leadership responsibilities, feedback from pilot participants, and increased consistency in reporting and execution. And post-pilot, which is after me, right, we will get the feedback, we will consolidate it, and we'll refine it and update it accordingly. And hopefully the next fellow would be able to follow up on updating it annually and aligning it with onboarding of new leadership. So this is not just a document, it's a system that can be tested, refined, and sustained across leadership transitions. And so the next fellow will not just be starting from scratch. The foundation and the structure are already built. Their role is to maintain, refine, and expand the system. The next fellow will be working with national leadership to finalize any gaps and to ensure all sections reflect current SNMA practices, integrating any feedback that's collected, as well as making sure that the framework is maintained, scaled, and ensuring it continues to evolve with the organization. Just to give you a sense of some of the current results, right? There's already, the operational manual has already been finalized. All the various parts have been finalized, and the maintenance framework has also been finalized. The challenge was not really in creating the content, but deciding what should be standardized versus intentionally left flexible. And so some of the challenges that I met were around documentation gaps, standardization versus flexibility, how it would align with the system, and how to make it sustainable. And some of the solutions that I came up with was obviously developing the operations manual, ensuring that there's some kind of governance structure that's included, meaning section ownership, things of that nature, and finally building something that's sustainable. So at this point, the structure is in place. The remaining work is focused on leadership validation and alignment, not building things from scratch. And what is the impact on the SNMA? Hopefully, the goal of the project was not to change how the SNMA leads, but to protect how the SNMA continues. So strengthening continuity across transitions and improving clarity of leadership expectations, and just reducing reliance on informal knowledge transfer. And some of the next steps, I've mentioned multiple times, would be just to validate, finalize framework, pilot implementation, and preparing for formal adoption and integration into the SNMA operations. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all the parties that assisted in making sure that this came into life, and I'm able to answer any questions as needed. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Hello, everyone. I will be getting started. Frank, is it okay to start?
Yes, absolutely, Dolly. You're all good to go. We're excited to hear. She's presenting from Osteopathic Community with her Do It Proud initiative. So I'm excited for this presentation as well. Alrighty, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So my name is Dolly Moda, and I serve as the NFLB Fellow for the Osteopathic Schools Committee. My project is called Do It Proud, and it focuses on addressing the stigma and misinformation surrounding osteopathic medicine amongst pre-medical students. So our agenda today, we'll walk through the background of this project, how it connects with SNMA's mission, and what I created and the impact for this initiative in the future. So a little bit about me. I'm from Orange County, California, and I've been involved in SNMA through being the SOMA liaison for the Osteopathic Schools Committee. Outside of SNMA, I work as a clinical research coordinator, and I'm really passionate about mentorship, and that's why this is such a big part of the project that mattered to me. Next, I would like to thank and acknowledge Marissa Arakawa. She is the OSC co-chair for this year, and I thank her for her support and guidance throughout this project. So as we know, the SNMA focuses on supporting underrepresented medical students, addressing healthcare disparities, and increasing culturally competent physicians. So this project aligns with that mission by expanding awareness of osteopathic medicine, strengthening the pre-med pipeline, and helping students make informed decisions about their careers. So a little bit why this project matters. One of the biggest issues I identified is that many pre-medical students encounter misinformation about DO schools. Common misconceptions include the idea that DO is a backup option or that DO physicians have limited opportunities. Because of this, students may avoid considering osteopathic programs, not because they're not interested, but because they don't have the accurate information. So this project focuses on addressing that group. So overview, to address this, I created the Do It Proud initiative, or DO It Proud initiative, which aims to increase accurate exposure of osteopathic medicine. It has three main components. There is the DO 101, it's like a visibility toolkit, and the representation campaign. For my NFLP project, I focused on specifically the first component, which is the DO 101, debunking the stigma. It is basically an educational module designed to be used with MAPS and pre-SOMA chapters. So the goal of the DO 101 is to increase awareness of osteopathic medicine by providing the MAPS chapters across the nation with accessible and scalable educational resources. This includes creating materials that are easy to use and easy to implement and can be sustained beyond this fellowship. So the timeline for the project, there were 4 main phases. The first was planning and alignment, where I designed the goal and coordinated with the committee on everything that should be included. The second was resource development, where we created the materials that would go into the DO 101 materials. The third was outreach and engagement, which focused on implementing and sharing the content. And finally, evaluation and growth, where we get feedback and that can be used to improve and expand the project in the future. So deliverables and the impact of them for this project, there were 4 key deliverables. The Why DO slide deck, which helps build foundational understanding of the DO pathway, and the myth-busting fact sheet, which directly addresses like common misconceptions that exist. The match data and outcomes visuals, which provide evidence-based confidence in training for DOs and career outcomes. And the facilitator's guide, which ensures the MAPS leaders can easily run these sessions and make the project scalable and sustainable for all chapters across the nation. So together, these resources created are structured and accessible way to introduce students to osteopathic medicine. Some of the challenges was coordinating across multiple organizations and stakeholders. Another challenge was addressing deeply rooted misconceptions that students may already have internalized. To overcome this, I focused on creating clear and accessible, easy to use materials that the chapters would adopt without needing any additional training. Sustainability for the project this project was designed to expand beyond this fellowship year. While I focused on the DO 101, future works are going to include the Do It Proud initiative through the Visibility Toolkit and a representation campaign. All materials can remain within the osteopathic committee within SNMA, allowing future fellows or members to continue building on this foundation. Some of the key takeaways. The biggest takeaway for this project is that the pipeline education plays a major role in shaping career decisions. Representation also matters. Students need to see themselves in the field to be able to have an interest to go into it. And most importantly, creating sustainable projects that allow for larger impact beyond just this 1 year. And that is all. Thank you so much for your time. And I'd like to thank NFLP, the OSC, and SNMA for supporting this project. And I'm happy to take any questions if needed. There is a question. What gap did you notice that led to the creation of the Do It Proud toolkit? So that is a great question. I had been to into a lot of pre-med conferences, and it was always the thing I heard again and again was like, oh, I'll just apply to some DO schools for backup, and I'll see, if I don't get into an MD school, we'll go ahead and apply to a DO school. And it was always sort of a second option because I think they didn't have the information that the DO pathway is very, very similar to the MD pathway, and all of the stats and things that are available nationwide, they did not have access to. And so hearing that multiple times, being in the pre-med space, and then me, myself, looking into the DO pathway and seeing, okay, is this really like a second option? To me, it feels more so that it's a alignment of how you want to practice medicine. And so that's why I decided to create the toolkit. Are there any other questions? Thank you. If anyone has more questions or would like to know more about the toolkit and the progress for it, I've put my email right there, so feel free to contact me. Okay, thank you guys for your time.
Alrighty. Okay, hello everyone. Hope you can hear me. I don't think I'm muted. Okay. But alrighty, hello everyone. My name is Brandy Glover, and I will be presenting today a project entitled Building Consistency and Impact in AMAC Panel Moderation. This presentation offers an overview of a project completed during my NFLP fellowship that addresses an unmet need for AMAC coordination. It's also done in collaboration with the Convention Planning Committee. For the agenda for today, first I'll do a little introduction of myself, introduction to the project manager and the committee, a project overview, timeline of project development and sustainability plan, project components, challenges, key takeaways, and future direction. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Brandy Glover. I'm originally from Baker, Louisiana. I went to undergrad at Xavier University of Louisiana, and I graduated last summer with my PhD in cellular and molecular medicine from Hopkins. And so, again, a little bit about, I guess, my leadership background at SNMA, not a whole lot, but I have been in MAPS when I was at Xavier, and also recently got to attend a National Leadership Institute and Region 3's Regional Leadership Institute. Just to kind of skip around, I guess, some general things that I'm interested in: love podcasts, love spending time with my children and teaching them new things. And I also recently began conducting bioethics research, which again, I'll mention my PhD is definitely not in that. So I'm going from, doing wet lab work to non-wet lab, and has definitely been interesting, but exciting. And so, yeah, I'll move forward with the talk. And so just a special thank you to my project manager, Denisha Thomas. She's the SNMA Governance and Special Project Coordinator. And the project concept was developed by Grace, who is a committee co-chair for the Convention Planning Committee as well. So huge thank you to her. She saw that this was an unmet need for planning AMAC, and I'm so grateful that I got to take on this project and I guess complete it into what it is, or what I will show you guys that it is for right now. Okay, so a little bit of project overview. This was a strategic plan to streamline panel moderation training for SNMA's annual medical education conference, or again, AMAC. So this focuses on improving moderator preparedness and impact, and it creates consistent, reusable tools for future conferences. So what is the impact on SNMA of doing this project? So this project matters because inconsistencies in moderator structures can seem unprofessional. Panel sessions vary in structure, flow, and facilitation style. And again, obviously moderators bring a diverse experience background. And so by having something like this to train everyone and get them on an equal playing field, it will help to just overall make the professionalism of panel moderation much better for AMAC, and of course, increase the engagement and the impact that it will have for the audience as well. So a little bit of what I said, but what this project will do is, again, create more engaging and consistent AMAC panels, improve moderator confidence and effectiveness as well, support a stronger experience for panelists and attendees, and just overall boost the AMAC experience, leading to, again, better engagement, satisfaction, and hopefully retention for years to come. Because of course, if you attend a really great panel, a lot of times that also is due to your moderator and how they can control the room and just make you feel very engaged and elated by what you're learning from that panel. So just something that was considered when developing this, of just how important a actual moderator is, aside from, of course, the panelists who are bringing in their knowledge and expertise for whatever that subject is. Okay, so a little bit of the timeline for this project development. Of course, my deliverable was an AMAC panel moderator toolkit. And so in phase one, it was just to plan development. So I got to meet with Denisha to discuss kind of, again, what are they looking for with the planning committee? Again, what are the goals behind this? Like, was there anything specific that they wanted me to focus on? How much autonomy did I have with creating it? And so again, just kind of gained those insights in terms of what was needed. And then phase two was developing the first part of the toolkit. And so I created a new moderator application and best practices guide, which I will get into in the slides to come.
Phase 3 was the visual training materials. So I created a visual aid for the toolkit, which was a PowerPoint presentation that really walked you through, again, everything you should be thinking about before the panel, during the panel, and after. Phase 4 is review and editing. So again, I received feedback from the project manager and co-chair with the ways to edit the existing materials. Phase 5 is the training recording, which to date has actually not happened yet. The training session for the current AMEC year of panel moderators is happening at the end of this month. And so that training will actually be recorded using some of the moderator tools that I've created, and will essentially be added to the toolkit for future years of moderators. So that way they can watch that video and hopefully get questions answered, or a little bit of a better understanding of the PowerPoint and even the best practices guide, sorry. And then phase 6 is feedback development. So I created a thorough form to request feedback from participants to help improve the toolkit overall. And of course, continue to update it as often as it needs to be updated. And I'll show you guys a little bit of what is included in that feedback form as well. Okay, so a little overview of toolkit sustainability and kind of how we are thinking about this. So of course, we want to ensure a careful and intentional handoff of this toolkit to future leadership that is essential for long-term impact. And so this will be included in the, again, kind of yearly handoff of materials, either, SOPs, guidelines, and things like that for leadership to come. And of course, as I mentioned, that feedback form is a huge part of this. It will help future committees cater to the needs of the panel moderators as the landscape of AMEC continues to evolve. So of course, we know technology is always changing. I'm pretty sure as years goes on, there will be some things that might need to be updated with this kit that might serve to be helpful in the future as things continue to grow and change. So toolkit components. So I kind of mentioned a few of them in the timeline, but just to kind of give you guys that full overview. So number 1 is the moderator application. Number 2, the panel moderator best practices and expectations guide. 3, the visual training slide deck. 4, the recorded training session, which like I mentioned is in progress. And then 5, the moderator feedback form. And so just to give you guys like a little bit of picture of what this is, again, this is like the best way I thought about how to put this together to show you guys, aside from just kind of walking through the whole form. But of course, it starts off with, a greeting, AMEC panel moderator application. We have basic information, name, pronouns, things like that. We also go into number 2, availability and commitment. So just if someone wants to say moderate for a specific date because they're only coming for part of the conference, that's something that we will get to know from this form as well. We also ask about experience and interest. So have they moderated before? Do they have experience doing moderations? And is there a specific topic or area that they would prefer to moderate as well? Skills and approach. So again, how would you describe your comfort level facilitating group discussions? How would you handle a panelist who is demonstrating or dominating the conversation, and then how will you ensure that all panelists feel included and heard during a discussion? So I thought this was important for this particular application, just to kind of, again, get a feel of where everybody is entering their time at AMEC. So that way we can, again, if there is certain people that say may need a little extra training or again, have additional questions because they haven't done this before, this is something that we can actually know from this questionnaire. And something that could possibly be handled earlier on. So that way that person can get the help they need and feel confident and ready to go when the conference starts and when they get to their particular session. So number 2, the best practices and expectations guide. So this is a short kind of 3-page document that really kind of summarizes everything that's in more of the visual training. But again, it's a quick read to where it's like, okay, you can, kind of look at this and see all the things you need to be hitting before getting into your panel, things you should think about beforehand, during the panel. Also mentioning a few things of, a few suggestions for handling challenges as well. So I think this is like a really great tool to have to refer back to when the moderators are, say, even right before the panel. They just wanted to kind of give this a quick overview to make sure that they're, good to go and have checked off everything that they need and can enter that panel confidently. So the visual slide deck. So of course, this is not all of it, but I included just some of the slides here. So if you follow the arrows and numbers, this kind of just gives you, like I said, a little bit of overview of what I included. So one of the slides being why moderators matter. I do feel like a huge part of this training process is to empower the moderators as well. So we want them to feel confident. We want them to feel like they are an important part of not just that one session, but of AMEC in general, and just making, you know, our attendees feel good and get everything they can out of each session that they attend. And again, moderators are a huge part of that. And so again, going a little bit further into like their role as a moderator, again, you are a guide, ask, listen, redirect, keep goals of discussion front and center. Again, going into moderator responsibilities from before the session, during and after. Audience engagement, so bringing the room in, encourage thoughtful questions. If the audience is gathering their thoughts, this is your opportunity to now step in and ask a Q&A that you think might be interesting or will lead to follow-up questions. So again, these are things that I think are really kind of important to mention that sometimes you may not think about, especially if you haven't done this before or haven't done it in a while. And then another one I thought was important to mention here was handling challenges. So I did include some examples of those challenges as well. One being, again, you have a panelist that begins sharing comments that kind of drift the conversation off. You know, how would you bring that back into focus without, you know, offending that person, you know, but of course, letting them know, hey, your thoughts are valid and we appreciate your expertise, but, you know, we want to bring it back in. Another one being, you know, two panelists that might begin to disagree over comments when it comes to that topic. You know, how would you think about handling that? And so, yeah, I think these are just, you know, really great ways to kind of think about some things and scenarios that might happen while moderating, just to make sure that you can handle it without, you know, pressure, staying calm, and being able to redirect that conversation. Next, again, is that recording training session. So as I mentioned, the committee does plan to have a session at the end of this month for the 2026 panel moderators. And that particular training session will be recorded and saved. And again, I think that would be great too, that it is a recording of the leaders going through the PowerPoint presentation, because it also gives an opportunity for, again, those who are currently training now, if they have very specific questions or things that may not be as clear in the training PowerPoint, that we can kind of get that addressed now. So that way in the future, as moderators are watching the video, they can also kind of have their questions answered, possibly based on what might come up in conversation from the training session this year. So I really thought that was a great idea. Initially, we did have some other plans about how we would record this. We were even thinking about maybe setting up like a mock panel and having a moderator and kind of doing some, like, you know, do's and don'ts, which again, I think is also a really, really great idea. But of course that requires very careful execution and time. So I will say time likely was not on my side during this, getting all this together. So I do think in the future that would be something nice. If maybe the recorded training session, is used for the first couple of years. Eventually we can switch over to maybe doing a mock panel to where, again, people can kind of get a really good visual of a moderator kind of in action, you know, redirecting, doing all the things that, again, a really great moderator would do, and things that, again, would keep the audience engaged and make sure our panelists are comfortable in, you know, getting their expertise out there as well. And then lastly, the moderator feedback form. And so I do want to mention these questions are under review right now by the current TPC to allow for the most thoughtful and comprehensive feedback form. But this is what I kind of have so far, just to kind of mention. One is, of course, what session did you moderate? You know, how would you rate your overall experience serving as a panel moderator? Did you feel adequately prepared to moderate your panel? How helpful was the toolkit that I've created? How clear were the expectations for your role as a moderator? Did you feel supported by the planning team and during your session? Timing and structure of the panel, was it manageable for moderation? Did you encounter any challenges while moderating? If so, please briefly describe them. Again, another one I would mention, would you be interested in serving as a panel moderator again in the future? So again, most of these, you know, questions, again, are curated to really kind of understand, is this toolkit helpful? You know, did they get everything they needed before, you know, moderating the panel? You know, were questions addressed? They feel comfortable doing it. They really feel like, hey, they got the most preparation they can get from the team before, you know, going out. And of course, you know, you never know how things are going to go with the panel, but obviously being as prepared as possible is helpful. And so some challenges that were experienced, of course, balancing the depth of content with the need for a concise and engaging format. So I think, again, there's so many moving parts to this, right? And things that you want to get out and you want to say to the moderators in terms of training. But I think it's important to also remember sometimes these moderator assignments are done kind of closer to when AMEC actually happens. So again, sometimes the assignments are one of the final details of AMEC coordination. So we must take that into consideration as well, that there may not be a huge amount of time to do like this, crazy extensive training. But I definitely think the toolkit that we've come up with at this point is a really great way for them to at least get what they need, even if it's just in a week's time, or again, if somebody joins in late, this is something that they can easily, get from the team, have the folder, look through the guide, look through the PowerPoint, and, I think still feel prepared and, like they have the most information they could have gotten from the team before getting into their panel session. And of course, with this is recognizing that not every possible scenario can be anticipated. There is only so much a training toolkit and session can cover. And so I will say that's probably more so to myself, because I feel like even when I was making the PowerPoints, I wanted to add all these scenarios and like possible responses and answers to challenges. But I realized, I cannot anticipate everything that would happen. So I definitely think at least giving, a review of a few things that are more common to happen during a panel session would also best prepare the moderators. But a huge part of this is also confidence in the toolkit, but also confidence in, the volunteers who do sign up to moderate, and that they do have the competence to handle situations, and, they can pull some ideas even from the examples that we discussed throughout the training. So yeah, definitely, again, hard for a perfectionist, I think, to deal with, but again, definitely, something that had to be reckoned with, because yes, it's only so much that you can include here. And again, only so much time to go through a training. So future directions, we are considering possibly including a short quiz covering most of the important tips and guidelines from the toolkit. We feel like this could serve as a confirmation of participation in reviewing the toolkit. So of course, there's like no way to fully know if everybody's, read the guidelines, read through the PowerPoint, watched the video in the future. And so we were thinking like maybe a short quiz might be a really great way to just say, okay, cool, we see that person has participated and completed the reviewing of the toolkit and they're ready to go for their session. It might also help, again, panel moderators with identifying areas they may need additional help with or have questions. So of course, if you get a question and you're like, oh, I thought I understood that, but you can't really answer that question, to the best of your ability, it might trigger you to know, okay, maybe I don't understand this particular scenario, right? Or like how I would handle that. So I definitely think it would be a great addition for, like I said, both the side of the planning committee, but also for the moderator to check in with themselves and see if they do have any additional questions or need help with anything. And then another future direction is utilizing this toolkit for all major SNMA meetings, including NLIs and also the regional medical education conferences as well, because if it's something that ends up working out really well, and again, it's easy to, pass on to the moderators, it would be really nice to just utilize the same tool for the other, huge conferences and meetings that SNMA puts on. So that way, those planning committees don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just pass it around and, share the wealth with this. And so some key takeaways as a fellow, I do just want to say I'm grateful for the opportunity to gain a deeper understanding of SNMA. I felt empowered by the leadership and mentorship experience throughout the fellowship. This further confirmed for me my ability to perform well under pressure when needing to meet a deadline. And I do feel more excited than ever to step into leadership and make a meaningful impact within SNMA. And so I do want to give a special thank you to the NFLP team, because obviously I know this is not an easy feat to do, but it really was great and it was helpful. And I loved every single person that we've gotten to meet and hear from throughout this time. And even more so working with the convention planning committee and getting to do something really cool like this. It's also, I guess selfishly, it's kind of cool to me that, something I created will be able to be used for years to come and hopefully continue to be improved, because I know, it's probably a million things I could have did better. But I think, I'm proud of it for right now. And I'm excited that this is something that will, continue to make the conference great and hopefully help some people, feel good and confident when moderating. And so again, thank you. Special thanks again to the people I also mentioned, Denisha, Grace, of course, the Convention Planning Committee, and of course, our fellowship leadership. Let's see. Okay, I do see your question. So what pushed you towards this project and how did you decide which aspects of training to include? Great question. I will say, I think the thing that kind of pushed me towards, I think, this national committee is also just like my, I think, admiration of AMEC as a whole. I've never been to the conference. I always see, you know, those really obviously inspiring pictures of all of these beautiful Black doctors with their white coats. And so even before really getting into SNMA as I am now, AMEC was something that I've always like, you know what, I want to go to that one day. Like at the minute, you know, realizing like, yep, I'm applying to med school, I'm ready, I'm going to do it. I knew, you know, AMEC was something that would probably bring me a lot of, you know, not only help, but like, you know, network and community as well. And so I think that's what really kind of drew me to the convention planning committee overall. And then deciding the aspects of the training to include, that was a hard one. As I mentioned before, Grace, who is one of the co-leaders of the planning committee, she kind of definitely had, you know, this conception of the idea that, hey, this is an unmet need. We need to figure out a way we can easily train, you know, panel moderators to, again, get them best prepared, but also not take away so much from the team because they are doing so much into the planning process. So it was really a thought of what would be the easier things that could like give the most impact. So of course, again, just having like a really quick cheat sheet, which is that, you know, expectations guide and best practices, to me, definitely a quick read where you can kind of get these, you know, ideas and training done. But also, again, like the PowerPoint that goes into a little bit more depth, you know, give some more examples where you can get a better overview of how to prepare to be a moderator. And then lastly, yeah, I think the recording was a really great idea that I spoke with Denisha about, just again, in the future, having something that, you know, would be something they can watch and kind of get a easier explanation from that's not just involving reading. But like I said, you know, I think definitely there could be some better ways of recordings and things that might be most impactful. But I think for right now, you know, what we have was what I think was, you know, made I guess the best choices for now. Sorry, but thank you for that question. Okay, don't think there's any more. So I will say thank you guys so much. Yeah, and again, I put the convention's email address here as well. If you are interested in being a panel moderator, or again, want to volunteer with AMEC in any way, of course, this is who you would go to do that. But yes, thank you guys so much for listening and have a great rest of presentation day.
Okay. Can anyone hear me all right? Okay, all right, I can go ahead and get started. So good evening, everyone. My name is Faith Obilo, and I had the pleasure of working with the Community Service Committee as the NFLP Fellow. And my project was on creating evergreen content or everlasting content aligned with the Community Service Protocol handbooks. Just a brief introduction about me. I'm from Aberdeen, Maryland, and I graduated from Johns Hopkins University with my Bachelor of Arts in Public Health Studies in May of 2024. I began my involvement with SNMA through my undergrad MAPS chapter and continued to be involved with SNMA after graduation through the Pipeline Mentoring Institute. And then a couple of my interests and hobbies are exercising through Zumba and weightlifting, reading, and playing my clarinet. So for today's agenda, I'll be covering our introduction of our team, the background and project goals, be walking through the timeline of the project implementation, highlighting what's already been completed, discussing some of the challenges I encountered, and then closing with next steps for future FLP fellows who get assigned this project. So the mission statement of SNMA is they're committed to supporting current and future underrepresented minority medical students, addressing the needs of underserved communities, and increasing the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians. And I highlighted the addressing the needs of underserved communities portion of the mission statement, as that directly ties with our project, as I will go into detail now. Before doing that, I wanted to recognize and acknowledge our team members. So Kevin, who is the co-FLP fellow who worked with me with the Community Service Committee, and then Denisha Thomas, who kind of gave us an introduction to what the project was and guided us along the way. So to begin with some background, the Community Service Committee has 9 ongoing initiatives that they encourage chapters to do programming between the months of August and April. And these initiatives are further explained in the 255-page protocol document that was first created in the 1980s and updated in 2020 to 2021 fiscal year. So while the current protocol is very thorough, there are some growth points to the existing document. So for example, they're very lengthy and content heavy. To the right-hand side, you'll see an excerpt from the LGBTQ and sexual health portion of the protocol. And most of the focus is on content and not as much on specific examples of programs that chapters can implement to carry out these protocols. And then the last point I'd like to make about the current existing protocol is the accessibility. Right now, this document can be found on the website, but there is some there's not some uncertainty about whether or not chapters are able to know where it is located on the website and if they're able to read through the entire 255-page document. So with that, the goal of this project is to create accessible materials for chapters to execute programming that align with the community service protocol. And we took a 3-pronged approach to do that. So first it was aligning our content, so getting understanding of what the existing content is and how that existing protocol can be transitioned into a video script that essentially audio visually explains what the protocol is and example activities that chapters can do to implement those programs, and then finally to then distribute and integrate this into the existing community service committee. So just to reiterate, our outcome was to create 9 8 to 10 minute video modules that chapters can then use as a guide to implement programming. So the project was broken up into 5 distinct phases, with the eventual deliverable being a video script that describes each community service protocol. So phase 1 was about building foundation and alignment. So that phase, it required us to take a deep dive into the existing protocol and then define what the expectations are for these video scripts. And then the next phase was actually framing out how these scripts would look like. So that's taking the existing protocol and identifying key learning objectives for each initiative, and then building reusable templates that highlight example programming and with the less focus on just simple content. And then for phase 3, That involves gaining feedback on these templates and then obtaining approval from the community service committee leadership to then eventually confirm speakers and how exactly the video formats will look like. And we haven't exactly gotten to this point, but eventually it would be the fourth phase, which was recording the content. So recording these videos and finalizing the scripts to eventually review these videos for edits. And for the future, ideally, these videos would then be stored on the website, on the community service webpage, which they can be shared with existing SMA and MAPS chapters for implementation. So what I have done so far is completed these script frameworks, and the protocols that I was assigned to do was the sexual health and LGBTQ, health awareness, obesity prevention, smoking cessation, and the Pipeline Mentoring Institute HPREPS program. And to the right is an example or an excerpt from the video script framework that I created for the LGBTQ health and sexual health awareness. So what I did was at the very beginning, I listed out the key learning objectives for the protocol video. And then below that, I basically took the existing content from the protocol and condensed them down into very brief paragraphs of content. And I took special mind to use language that chapters could also then use in their future programming for this topic. And then beyond just the core content, the bulk of the framework gives examples of programming that chapters can do. And not only just listing the example programming, but then breaking it down further into how those programming can be implemented. So giving like the timeline for the events, an example outline that chapters can use, potential materials that could be needed for implement this programming, who to contact to promote and recruit for the events, potential volunteer roles, what a rough budget estimate could look like, and then contacts for who to reach out to help implement programming. And then two main challenges that I stumbled across while working on this project was time management on my end, balancing a full-time job, and then also reviewing the original protocol ended up taking up longer than I expected. I underestimated the upfront time that was needed to do that. And that ultimately led to a slower start and delay in building the first script framework. And then while building the frameworks, I encountered a challenge in making them cohesive with one another. Some of the existing handbooks were more content heavy than others. So I had to kind of navigate making them streamlined and similar when it came to the framework. And what I found helped was kind of just first establishing what I wanted to include in each template, and from there, building the framework around that. So for next steps, so since we already have the existing frameworks, the next steps will just be fleshing those out into full scripts that someone can read from. Right now, the frameworks are pretty much bullet points for the programming examples. So the next steps for the future fellow would then be converting this framework into a full script that a speaker can read from when creating these video modules. And then revising the scripts based on feedback from the Community Service Committee will be something that also would need to be done. And then as we move on to the video production side of it, identifying speakers who can be on camera and kind of lead these video modules, and then eventually creating the videos themselves. So that's the end of my presentation. I would like to have a special shout out to Kevin and Denisha again, and then also Caleb Davenport and Brooke Jones, who are the Community Service Committee co-chairs. And then lastly to the NFLP leadership team for executing the programming this year and allowing me to be a part of it and really get a better understanding of what SMA is and how I can make a lasting impact through this project. And I'm very happy to take any questions, either here or if you think of anything later, feel free to email me at fobila1@jhu.edu. Thank you. Okay, I do see a question here. How should this content be updated or maintained moving forward? Yes. So ideally, what we could do after the frameworks have been turned into scripts is to gain feedback from the community service committee, and then from that gain a sense of like what could be taken out or what should be left in. And ideally, this is supposed to be like evergreen content. So it's supposed to be content that lasts for a long time and as a resource for chapters to rely on year after year. So hopefully, as chapters implement projects and run into either challenges or are there certain elements that work well, there could be a feedback form that goes out to chapters who implement protocol programming. And from that feedback from the chapters themselves, that can be incorporated into revising the videos to kind of, take into account the actual implementation of these projects and what worked well and what could potentially be tweaked to be a better fit for chapters. Thank you for the question. Okay, are there any other questions that I can answer? Okay. All right. If not, again, please feel free to email me. I'm very happy to talk further about this. Again, thank you so much.
I'm not sure if everyone can hear me or not. However, apparently I cannot present my slides, so I'm just going to share my screen instead. How's that sound? Hopefully that's all good for everyone here. Okay. Let's see if this will work today. Okay, I'm so confused about this. Yeah, I'm sharing it right now. Okay. Okay, I think everyone should be able to see my screen now. How is that? Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, well then I'll go ahead and start. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Johnson, and today I'll be presenting my National Future Leadership project on standardizing SNMA community service nationwide through evergreen content generation. So I'll walk you through the problem we identified, the solution we built, and how this improves long-term across SNMA chapters. Just want to check really quick before we continue. How's my sound, everyone? Is it good? Perfect. All right, well, here we go. All right. So the first thing I'd like to share with you all today is the agenda. So we'll start with a quick overview of the project, and then move into the structure implementation, and finally discuss sustainability and long-term impact. Okay. So first, thank you so much again for having me here. My name is Kevin. I am a student at the University of Rochester studying clinical and translational sciences. I'm currently in my third year, expecting to graduate in 2027. So as far as development that I have, I've been the local MAPS community outreach chair last year for my local MAPS chapter. Currently, I serve as a national co-MAPS mentorship liaison as well with Jada Lee, excuse me. And then the general leadership that I have here is I am the president of the French Toast Club, which is the University of Rochester's French club. And then for things that I like to do for fun, I like to work out, I like to read when I have the chance, and write songs and stories as well. So here's a team that I kind of collaborated with on this project. It was completed in collaboration with my co-fellow Faith Othio. You just saw her present her presentation on this, and our community service, community leadership as well, with our governance and special project specialist, Tanisha Thomas. So I'd like to first go over the mission statement, which is essential for everything SNMA that we do. So the work is grounded in SNMA's mission to support underserved communities and develop culturally competent, social conscious physicians. This project specifically focuses on how we deliver that message and that mission through community service. So to start off, let's understand the problem. So SNMA has a community service committee, and the community service committee has identified 9 national community service protocols, each designed to address critical health disparities. The challenges that these protocols are currently housed in a very large, detailed manuscript with over 200 pages, specifically 255 pages, which makes it very difficult for chapters to consistently implement. As well as the 255-page manuscript is particularly housed in Issuu, which is a platform in which the ingrained PDF is undownloadable. So each thing kind of has to be kind of screened in this state that's not accessible. So as a result, programming can become inconsistent, depending on leadership turnover, and difficult to sustain, as well as this is the only way to access this manuscript is through this website and nowhere else. It's nowhere else to find it. And the last update was also 2021. Okay. To address this, so first off, these are the nine community service protocols. The way me and Faith split this up is that we each had protocols that we decided to take and transform into this evergreen content. So everything that's listed in this bowl are the ones that I did, which are the violence prevention, mental health awareness, TOTO, which stands for tissue organ donor education, and pipeline mentorship as well. So our solution. So to address this, we decided to develop a system of evergreen content. This includes standardized short-form training modules designed to translate complex protocols into clear, accessible, and actionable guidances for chapters. So the overall goal is to improve consistency, clarity, and sustainability across SNMA. So in short, a lot of these protocols and these new standardized short-form modules can either look like videos or either interactive content as well. So in general, what this project does is, well, at its core, the project takes those long, detailed protocols that are sometimes like 5 to 10 pages long, and translates them into a short, structured training module that chapters can actually use. Videos can be skimmed to address and for to be searched for, and the protocols. People can actually search for what they are actually specifically looking for in the protocol, and they can be digested a little bit better. So these protocols are designed to be accessible, easy to implement, and scalable across all chapters. Specifically, we focused on key protocols that are mine, where the January is Mental Health Awareness, February is Pipeline Mentorship Institute, March is Violence Prevention, and September's TOTR. So specific goals that we had. So like I said again, once the main goal of this project is to create a sustainable framework for community service education. So that includes improving alignment between national expectations and chapter execution, reducing barriers for new leadership, and ultimately increasing consistency in programming. So we followed a very structured developmental process. We created this timeline at the beginning of our project around November. And so, like I said, it's starting with the protocol review, the alignment with the leadership, and then moving forward, we do framework development, content preparation, and compilation in February and March. And finally, this implementation and distribution planning that we find ourselves currently in this month. And then eventually, and I guess now we'll be doing the NFLP culmination, which is what we're presenting to you right now, and material transitions, in which when FLP finally does end, we will then transfer everything over we have and in this translation and kind of switch over that way, just for long-term use as well. Okay. So to ensure that this work is as evergreen and sustainable, it continues to improve over time, we focused on 3 key areas. The first was to standardize evaluation. So this basically means chapters can consistently measure impact using pre and post assessments, different surveys that they can use to engage to see how well this initiative is actually going. The second they can do is data tracking. So participation, partnerships, and outcomes are documented and aligned nationally so that we can continue to make this better. And third, structure feedback. So we can continuously identify gaps and refine programming that we have. Together, these create a system that supports consistency, accountability, and long-term impact across SNMA. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. I think, yeah, that's. I had another slide, but apparently it didn't show. It was just a better slide for thank you. So apparently it didn't go through. So I'll say thank you to Faith for doing this project with me. Thank you to Denisha and all of the community service committee as well, and to the National Future Leadership Program leadership as well. So thank you for everyone. So ultimately, I just want to close. This project is about more than just creating materials. It's about ensuring that every SNMA chapter, regardless of size or resources, can deliver consistent, meaningful, and impactful community service. Because we show up for our communities that matters. So yeah, and I think I forgot to say this as well, but moving forward, we're going to propose improvements, including strengthening evaluation tools, increasing access to resources, and et cetera. So yeah, that's all I had for you. Thank you so much. And I will now be taking questions. And if you don't have any questions, that's also okay as well, because I know my presentation was very similar to Faith, but we'll give it about like 2 to 3 minutes for some questions. Thank you so much. Oh, okay, here we go. I have some questions. Okay, how should this content, oh, is this for me? I think, oh, okay, there we go. What community partnerships do you think SNMA should prioritize moving forward? Oh, that's great. There's quite a few of them, actually, I think. Right now, SNMA is really huge in terms of the national level. We very well, we have a lot of partnerships with other national organizations, but I think a little disparity with that is that sometimes the the largeness of a national community can kind of oversee a lot of the local chapters. So I think the best thing that we can do is to kind of make these templates for chapters to follow. And the best community partnerships that SNMA really should prioritize are the ones that are local. The stronger we can build our local community, the stronger that the national community can be as well. So that could either be things like partnerships with high schools, whether those be required that maps chapters and different PMI pipeline initiatives start to make required in their programming. So and their organizations. Okay, do we have any more questions? I don't want to take up too much time. I do know other people have to present. Maybe about one more minute and then I'll give it to the next person. Well, while we wait, so I just want to say thank you again to everyone involved in FLP this year. This has really been a wonderful experience, and I've had a blast. I've learned a lot, and I hope to see all of you at AMEC. I don't think there are going to be any more questions, so I'm going to leave it here. I hope to see all of you at AMEC, and congratulations to everyone that has done this and kind of finished your presentation. You should be so proud of yourself. Yeah, so thank you so much, and I'll give it up to the next one.
Hi everyone, I'm getting everything set up and putting my presentation on. So 1 second. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I want to make sure everyone's able to. Or is everyone able to see my screen? All right, thank you so much for that. All right, so we're going to start. Hi, everyone. My name is Jean Pierre. Today, I'm going to be representing the FLP Fellowship when my project was Elevating JSNMA, and it was completed through the Publication Committee. This project was focused on strengthening the foundation of the Journal of the Student National Medical Association by aligning it closely with academic publishing and standards. So I was able to work with some amazing people. So today I'm going to walk you through the points of JSNMA, the key challenges that we identified, and the strategic direction that we began building. The work has been completed, and there's still a long ways to go. The pathways forward is for long-term recognition and impact. The goal is to show that not just what was done, but also how this work contributes to long-term sustainability. But first, a little bit about myself. My name is Jean Pierre. I am from Orlando, Florida. I currently go to Florida Atlantic University. I'm a master's in health administration student, bachelor's in neuroscience and behavior. I have served in many SNMA leadership positions as well as MAPS president and a lot of school involvement as well. Some of my hobbies are traveling, fitness, as well as mentoring. I wouldn't be here without my amazing team, so I definitely wanted to highlight that. My amazing team has done so much to help me get to this point, and just being able to not only mentor me, but also being able to help me learn so much throughout this process. So we're going to start with the team. We're going to go through Hans, which is the publication committee chair. I would also like to say thank you to Brianna, who is our amazing vice chair for the publication committee, and my amazing co-fellow, Shadestiny, who has been such a great help in helping us work together to do as much progress as we possibly can do. So this is where we're going to start off, understanding the starting point. I think it's very important. You're going to see two presentations that our committee has been able to produce. It's going to have two different kind of narratives and directions. So JSNMA has long served as a valuable platform for students' voices and emerging scholarship in medicine and public health. It provided a space for narrative, medicine, reflection, and student-led perspectives, which is extremely important, but the problem that we were seeing is when viewed through the lens of academic publishing, it became clear that while the platform existed, the structure required for professional recognition was not there. So in other words, the content had value, but the system supporting it needed a development so that that value would be able to be broadcast to the world. The more people that sees it, the more people that get some approach to it, the more people are able to learn. So this is where we see several structural gaps that we were able to identify at the beginning. There was no clear defined scope, purpose, or aim, meaning there was no consistent direction guiding the journal and that should be represented. Second, the submission and evaluation process lacked standardization, which made it difficult to ensure consistency and fairness in the applicants that we were getting. And third, there was no formal peer review framework, which is critical component in any academic journal when we're looking to broadcast it to the world and have our platform being able to be shared on multiple platforms as well. Additionally, the editorial oversight was limited. There was no clear governance structure, which is something that we were working on to fix. And another problem that we identified was there was no defined pathway towards indexing or long-term academic credibility, meaning the work published had limited visibility and there was no way for us to ensure long-termness. So when we talk about reframing the vision, this led to a shift of thinking. The goal was not simply to improve the publication, but to reposition it. From a student platform to a journal supporting academic infrastructure. So we have the old model, which is student publication platform. Then we transition to strategic repositioning, and then the new model, which is academic journal infrastructure, which is what we're working on. My project focused on building the structure needed to support the transition, not just what JSNMA may represent, but strengthening how it functions internally. Okay, so some of the operational changes that were implemented were based on several of the key things that we identified for improvement. These included strengthening submission expectations, defining journal identity, and aligning with peer review standards, improving editorial structure, and preparing for future indexing and funding opportunities as well. So all of these things were things that we were trying to fix. While it's not fully implemented, they represent the strategic direction that JSNMA is moving towards, and more credible and sustainable academic model is what we need in order to create sustainability for all of our publications. So this is the work that we were able to do. So a large portion of this work happened behind the scenes. conducting a lot of research on established academic journals to see what exactly we need, including the Journal of American Medical Association and the American Journal of Public Health, among many others. We were able to look at that. The goal was not just to look at what they publish, but to understand how the structure was so that we're able to grow as a platform. Specifically, I examined how journals define scope, maintain consistency, and help build credibility over time. So when we look down here, using those insights, I was able to develop like a clear scope and purpose and aim, which now provides and defines academic direction that we're trying to head on. So we're able to take the information that we're getting from all of these different sources and platforms to be able to develop a structure that puts us in the best position to succeed long term and provide the platform to students and anyone in academia that's looking to be published through SNMA. This was like a foundational step in transitioning towards a more structural model overall. So another thing that we did was scope, purpose, and aim. So the project focused on helping develop this structure. The scope defines the journal's cover, including medicine, public health, and health equity. The purpose on why it exists is to bridge student scholarship with professional publication standards. And the aim focused on long-term direction, supporting the development of credibility and student-led academic journal position for sustainability and future index. So we want to be able to be broadcast further and be able to have more reach. This gives us something that JSNMA previously lacked and a clear academic identity once everything is done. So we're able to see some of the things that were worked on to be able to push us forward. And a lot of research was done in order to have the foundation to be able to continue as well. So when we talk about structural transformation, we talk about where we were before and then where we are now. So this represents a shift from informal structure to now a defined direction. So when you look at before and then you look at now, we have a journal that now has a clear identity, an improved structure, and a pathway towards professional recognition. While we're still in progress, the transformation established the foundation needed for long-term growth. We have informal organization structures, undefined academic direction, limited editorial oversight, and inconsistency in publication standards. These were all things that we identified, and now we're working on and have already completed some of those things, which is define journal identity and mission, structured submission process, and moving towards formal standards and pathway for professional recognition. So when we talk about pathway to recognition, there are many steps. This includes strengthening publication standards, improving review processes, increasing visibility in platforms such as Google Scholar, and working towards long-term results and getting visibility through PubMed indexing. These steps are essential to ensuring that the work published not only creates, but is recognized in academic spaces. We want students, when they submit to SNMA and they get published by SNMA, they know that their articles are going to get reached by a wide audience and they're going to be able to share their information and their knowledge with the world. So over here, you're able to see some of the steps that we have towards our ultimate trajectory: publication standards, peer review excellence. We also have PubMed goals, which is what we're trying to do in the long term. And we're starting with Google Scholar indexing and discoverables through academic database. And we also have open access model, which aligns with the publishing modern standard, maximizing accessibility. So to close out this project, I just wanted to say a special thank you to everyone that was involved. The publication committee has been such a big help in helping us not only complete the mission of making sure that students are able to have a platform to be able to share their information with the world, but also to be able to help students in the FLP fellowship to not only gain information and understand how to publish, but also understand what goes on behind the scenes to push things forward. So a big special thank you to Hans, big special thank you to Brianna, and a big special thank you to my co-fellow Shadestiny, who you guys will be hearing from next. And with that, I wanted to ask if there's any questions. It was a pleasure working with you too. Thank you. Thank you. And there's also going to be more being said on this topic as well from my co-fellow, who's going to be able to get you guys some more in-depth on the project and the work that we were able to do. All right, so I'm going to give some more time for questions because I know we do have some more people, but I want to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered. If not by me, then my co-fellow can also answer as well.
Good evening, everyone. You can just let me know when you're ready for me to start, Frank. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Shadestiny Taylor. I was working with the Publications Committee on my project, and it is titled Project Elevate JSNMA. So what we'll be going over, I'll tell you a little bit about me, why we chose this project outlining goals, what we've accomplished, our current challenges, next steps, and closing. So as I said, my name is Shadestiny Taylor. My hometown is Salem, Alabama. I did my Bachelor of Science degree at Auburn University in Animal Sciences and Pre-Medical Sciences. I did my Master's of Biomedical Sciences at Rutgers University. I currently serve as the CSMP Mentee Coordinator and the DRC MSTP Secretary and Outreach Personnel. And I love anything arts, crafts, and creativity, amateur photography, and thrifting with family. And so as you saw with Jean's presentation, this is like the team that made it happen. So Hans is our committee chair, Biana is our vice chair, and Jean, of course, is my co-fellow on this project. And so a little bit of background on why we chose this project. JSNMA, the Journal of the Student National Medical Association, has limited discoverability. That is because it is only accessible to SNMA members. One of the other problems that we face is that it's kind of buried in the website structure. Whenever we release a new edition of JSNMA, it's kind of hard for our members to navigate and find. And also with it being limited to SNMA members, it kind of limits the people who are able to access it and kind of gives us a limited scope of our academic credibility. So here is the project outline. I'll give you some of the cliff notes because I know it's a lot. But like I said before, it's Project Elevate JSNMA. And ultimately, the project aims to enhance the quality, accessibility, and reach of JSNMA and SNMA related publications. And some of my personal goals as a fellow was to implement something that was sustainable beyond my time as a fellow and in years to come with the Publications Committee and SNMA. Informing some of the goals that I'll discuss with you in the next few slides, and not only increasing the visibility of JSNMA, but SNMA and our connection with the broader medical community. So here are my goals. I'll give you the highlights of each. So the first is to create a new standard for JSNMA journal entries. We kind of get a wide variety of things that are submitted to the Publications Committee. So our aim was to narrow that scope of what we accept in JSNMA so we can become a little bit more academically credible. Next was to transition JSNMA to an open access platform. Like stated before, we want to expand our horizons and have more people be able to see JSNMA outside of SNMA members. We wanted to create a student-led editorial board. So this will be students who are a part of the SNMA who will remain on as this part of the publications committee, just to ensure some consistency with the publications that are chosen and released. Create a standardized publication schedule so our SNMA members know what and when to expect, when they can expect to submit their articles. And lastly, to increase the visibility of JSNMA and its related content. And so why restructure? I'd say one of the biggest reasons, or one of the biggest benefits of restructuring is allowing our members to have access to a DOI. That is something that they think is super important and we think is important as well. So we are working towards that. And like previously stated, reaching broader audiences outside of just SNMA and the medical community. And so benefits of restructuring, having that global audience, and this could create some great avenues for SNMA as far as things like sponsorships or partnerships. And so here's the timeline of things we've done so far and what we are looking forward to doing in the future. So we've already completed the guidelines. We made the flyer for the fall JSNMA. We have a proposed publication schedule. I created a digestible version of the guidelines. We're still working to create the editorial board as well as implement that plan for funding for the open access. And of course, I'm presenting for you today. Next month, we will be at AMEC. So of course, tying any loose strings left with the project, but I do plan on remaining on the publications committee just to see the project through and for smooth transition. And so here's the flyer that I created for the fall edition of JSNMA. What we saw was some similar viewership with years past with previous editions of JSNMA. So we will be working towards improving that in the next fiscal year. We do expect with the transfer to open access that we will have increased viewership. And here is the document of the guidelines that we made. What I did was I took this here on the left side and made it into a more digestible, easier to read version of the guidelines. So I'll show you that now. So here we are, and I tried to highlight key things for each subsection. So what's changed, what's the same, expectations, anything add-on. So that would be photos, data, graphs, anything like that. Of course, I included some examples, and I even included a little checklist for those who are interested in submitting to JSNMA. And here is our proposed publication schedule. Of course, we have spring coming up, and we do have our theme selected. It is rooted in rising identity, purpose, and progression in medicine. Our flyer is pending for that. For the fall, we are aiming to do a JSNMA summer edition. So that will be highlighting things from AMEC. So one of those things would be WCJRF winners. And of course, we'll have the fall edition as well, and that is pending its theme. So this is our major foreseeable challenge, is gaining that funding for the open access platform. That is something we're still actively working towards, and we do plan on remaining vigilant on that project moving forward. And so here is a visual of the things we've completed, what we're working on, which is this little loading sign, and what we're going to do in the future. So we've already created the flyer. We released the fall JSNMA. The guidelines are created. We created the digestible version. We are working on getting the funding for the open access platform. Once we do that, we will do a successful transfer of what we already have in the JSNMA databanks and transfer over. We will still continue to form our editorial board and get approval for that proposed schedule. And so here are some of our next actionable steps. That would be making the new guidelines public, beginning the forming of an editorial board, and to formulate the plan for JSNMA funding. And so thank you. Thank you all for coming here to watch all of our presentations. Thank you specifically to Hans, Brianna, and Jean for helping me with creating this project and for being the dream team. Thank you for the rest of the publications committee as well, and to NFLP for the opportunity to make a difference. And are there any questions? While we wait, I'm gonna take a sip of my water. Okay. What advice would you give to future publications committee members? I would say one thing that I have seen come to fruition, not just being an FLP fellow, but just being in other leadership roles, especially in SNMA, is to speak your mind. If you see something that needs to be addressed, if you see something that needs any sort of like revitalization, speak up. Especially if you're a member, especially if you're the next FLP Publications Fellow. I think it's a great opportunity to put plans into fruition and to see it come to reality. So for any future members, well, let me just say this. We're also always accepting members. So anyone who wants to be a part of the publications committee, I put the email here. I also put my personal email here if you wanted to reach out for any questions. But we're always accepting members. We're always accepting new ideas. And yeah. Thank you, Hans. I see that. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Tamika. And if there are no other questions, again, thank you to all of the viewers out there who are watching my presentation. Thank you to NFLP. Thank you to everyone on the publications committee. It was a pleasure working on this committee and to be in something that is going to make such a big difference. And we're going to see the fruits of our labor moving forward in each generation of SNMA. So thank you. Thank you, Sabian. And thank you, Skylar.
Hi, I am the co-director once again, just to reintroduce myself of FOP this year. And just a big thank you to all the fellows for their hard work and dedications throughout their presentations this evening. It wasn't just about presenting projects, but really about showcasing the impact and leadership and vision. These fellows have trained their skills. Have trained their skills all throughout the years and really contributed and grew throughout the program. So it was absolutely wonderful to see all their hard work really come to fruition and really be able to showcase that to you guys. We saw both strategy team and national committee projects and really see a full breadth of the work and see like from big picture strategy and organizational development implementation, all in and helping SNMA grow through each committee. And I think they did an absolutely wonderful job. I think what stands out the most is really how sustainable some of these initiatives are this year, and being able to really build on it for the next year. And so I think, are these fellows really focused on legacy and impact? And then also I wanted to give a big thank you to all the advisors and the mentors who really supported the fellows all the way through the process this year. and it really gave their guidance, their leadership, their time to allow the fellows to grow, to really allow the program to have its full impact. And then lastly, to our fellows in this program, absolutely, you should be proud of everything you've accomplished this year. And really, you've grown in leaders, collaborators, advocates, and all the strengthening and the teamwork, problem solving through each think tank challenge and everything like that. And so us here at FLP, me along with Tamika and our whole leadership team, we're immensely proud of you guys. And we are excited to see how you continue to grow as leaders within the organization and beyond. And I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us this evening to support the fellows and to celebrate this work. And this concludes our presentations for this year. And we look forward to seeing you all at AMEC coming up. And so good to see you all, and thank you so much.